Hi everybody, welcome to this new episode for the Gen AI Nerd channel. And in this episode, I want to show you how you can actually use skills when you have the normal ChatGPT Plus subscription. Now, you might have heard about skills, and actually it's very easy to build and use skills when you have a Claude subscription. When you have a ChatGPT subscription, it's a bit more complex, but still it is possible nowadays to already leverage skills. So what I will do in this video is first of all briefly explain what we exactly mean by skills. Then I will show you how you can use skills in a normal ChatGPT environment, having a Plus subscription. And as a final point, I will also show you how you can use it using the Codex app when you have a ChatGPT subscription. So let's get started. Yes, so when we talk about skills, it means that you can give your large language model, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini, specific capabilities, and you can actually fine-tune the instructions of how this capability should work. And in this video, I will use the example of a crazy ideator skill. You might have noticed that if you want to ideate with ChatGPT or Claude, typically the ideas it will suggest are rather kind of average and middle of the road. So if we want to really get crazy creative ideas, we really need to push it and give it a specific capability. So what I did was to build a crazy ideate skill. And what does that exactly mean? Here you can actually see the skill that I have built. And in the end, a skill is simply a text document with a specific structure, which we called a YAML structure. So it starts with giving the name of the skill and a brief description of the skill. And then subsequently, actually, it will give a much more extensive description of what the skill is expected to do, how it should function. So then you can actually really describe in detail what the skill needs to do. And if you have that skill, every time when you write a prompt in an environment where you have this skill enabled, the large language will read this description to decide whether or not this skill should be leveraged. So it's nothing very sophisticated from a technical perspective. This is simply a text document that the large language model can enable when it thinks it is necessary to enable. So let me now show you how you can actually build and use skills in your normal ChatGPT subscription. So here I'm in my ChatGPT environment and I just now opened a new chat. And now let me show you a prompt that you can use to build skills. So here is my prompt. And so this prompt is stating research best practices for creating effective skill.md files as of today's date, then build a skill.md for the following purpose: being an expert in creating crazy ideas based on the input of the user. The skill should produce several radically creative ideas, and so on and so on. So I've given it a quite extensive prompt, but not too extensive, to build a skill.md file. This is this text file that we need, and also I've explained my purpose. And now I can just press enter, and now ChatGPT will start making skill.md file that I will subsequently be able to use. So now we have to briefly wait and then we can see the results. And it has been thinking for like 2 minutes, and then as I wanted, I now have received this skill.md file, and you can see again, I see the same structure with the name, the description, and then more detailed instructions. And now I can simply here download this file immediately to my computer. So now I have my skill.md file. And let me now show you how we can actually use this skill in a project. So I already created a project which I call the Value Proposition Designer. So this is a specific project where I can develop all kinds of value propositions. And just to give you a bit of the background, so if I go to my project settings here, I've given it some instructions to act as a value proposition expert agent, and I added some instructions on what it needs to do. So this is more in general how to create value propositions. Moreover, as a source here, I've given it actually a document about best practices for developing high quality value propositions. So that's kind of some additional knowledge that I have provided. And so now I can here start chatting to create new value propositions. However, if I would now use it without my skills, still the ideas would tend to be quite average, middle of the road. But now I can actually add my skill. And one way to do that is simply to now add a source, and then I will add the file that I just downloaded. So let me show you how we can do that. So here is my file that I just downloaded. So now I will add this skill.md file, which is my skill description, to my sources. And now I can actually prompt and explicitly refer to this file, and then the skill should be enabled. So let me show you how you do that. Yeah, so now I can write quite a straightforward prompt saying create a value proposition to address the following problem. People struggle to pay energy bills. Use the Maverick ID generator skill to accomplish this task. And I don't think we need an extended thinking. We can go to a standard thinking here. And now I will press enter. And now again, we will have to wait a bit. And then we will see how it enabled the skill to create a creative value proposition for me. Yeah, so it has been thinking for like 10 seconds. And you can see here that it now indeed kind of read the instructions in my skill document. And that way it is aware about the need to create really creative ideas. So now let's take a look what it did. Yeah, so you see, again, it mentions that it uses the Maverick ID generator. And let's now go down to the actual ideas that it created for me. Yeah, so here we can see some of the creative ideas that it developed. So it suggested to have a bill shock shield as part of the value proposition. And when we scroll down here, it also suggests a fair energy plan. And here we have like energy on autopilot. So you see that already here, it's kind of not giving me the middle of the road suggestions, but already giving me more creative ideas. And that way we can now simply leverage the skill that we have built. So this is the first way on how to use skills in ChatGPT when you only have the Plus subscription, but there is still another way to do it, a bit more complex, or at least a bit more technical. And here we will use what is called the Codex app, which you see here on the left-hand side. So actually, when you have a Plus subscription, you can use the Codex app. And let me show you what you can do when you have downloaded this Codex app. So to use it, you simply click here on Codex, and then you will be able to download the app on your computer. And then in the Codex app, so this is the Codex app that you need to download, then we can use that to build skills. So let me show you how you can do that. Yeah, so now I'm in the Codex environment, and in the Codex environment, you have something called plugins. So if you click on that, you see you can use plugins, but also skills. So now I can click here on skills, and then you will get an overview of skills that OpenAI has already created for you. But we also have what is called the skill creator. So this is actually a skill to help you to create skills. And so that's something we can use now to easily build skills. So if I now go to a new chat, I can just do add skill, and then you see the skill creator comes up. And now again, I can simply ask, create me a skill to help me create crazy ideas like Maverick, something like that. Yeah. And then I can simply now press enter, and now actually Codex again will for me create a skill. But now the nice thing is that immediately the skill will kind of be integrated into my Codex. And I have done this before, so I can now actually show you the skill that it built. So if I go down now here, you can actually see the skills that I have built. And indeed, one of the skills that I have is my crazy ideator skill. And so here you can then see again the description. And so this is now already installed in my Codex environment. And now every time when I go to a chat and I simply, we can now remove this, and I can now simply say, okay, add crazy ideator, and then actually my crazy ideator skill will be enabled. And now I can again ask, use this skill to ideate on a value proposition to solve the problem that people struggle to pay their energy bills. And then it will immediately enable this skill. And actually in Codex, I have created a separate folder. So let me briefly show you that. Yeah, so this is my value proposition creator folder where I have an agent.md file. And that's again, simply overall instructions that I have given this folder on how to write a value proposition. And again, I have this document with best practices to create value propositions. And so now if I go to my Codex again, I can now open this folder as a project. So let me show you how you can do that. So now here I can simply say add a new project, and use an existing folder. And then I will select as a folder my value proposition folder. Yes, so now I have selected this folder on my computer. And now I can, in this folder, execute this prompt where I have enabled my crazy ideator skill and then ask it to create a value proposition. And then we can press enter. And now using the information at that folder and on top of that, the skill that now has been integrated in Codex will be used to create for me some crazy ideas. Yeah, so we can already see that it has now used already and enabled already the crazy ideator skill. And you see now that it starts creating some wild ideas for me. And this is, of course, I would say the most straightforward way to do it, also a bit more the advanced way. The only disadvantage here is that you have to use a separate app, the Codex app. But anyway, I think it's actually nice to experiment with because here you have a huge amount of possibilities. So I hope this can help you to start using skills in ChatGPT, even if you only have the Plus subscription. When you have the Enterprise subscription, it's actually easier to build skills than you can do it like in Cloud. But at the moment, at least in the Plus subscription, that's not yet possible. But I think the two alternatives that I showed you can really help you to start working with skills also in ChatGPT. So I hope this is helpful. Thanks for your attention. Bye.